welcome to the Online Educa debate. This has become something of an institution both at Online Educa and at its sister conference in Africa, eLearning Africa, and I hope that you will enjoy this. For those of you who either haven't been to one of these debates before or have been living in a dictatorship or something, I will explain the rules. The idea of this debate is that it's supposed to be a kind of parliamentary format, highly interactive. It gives you the opportunity to get things off your chest. You may think that because it's a parliamentary format, it's therefore civilised. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a parliament or eaten with a politician, but I can certainly assure you that they're far from civilised. And this is not going to be a particularly civilised debate because it is going to be lively. It's your opportunity, as I say, to get things off your chest. The only civilised thing about it is that there are drinks available. And for that, which is similar to parliaments, actually, and I hope will contribute to it not being too civilised as well. But for the drinks, we're very grateful to the conference sponsors, ICWE. So as long as stocks last, please do feel free to help yourself during the debate. We've got a very controversial motion today that we are going to debate. I'm going to tell you about that in a minute, but I want just to explain a little bit about the rules. We've got a motion here which is going to be proposed by two speakers from one side and opposed by two speakers from the other side. It's actually worked out that this is going to be boys against girls today, so it's going to be even more controversial than usual. And you don't have to vote on party lines. So if you are a woman and you want to vote for the boys, please do, and vice versa. But just as a matter of interest, can we have a show of hands? How many people in the audience are male? Please raise your hand. And how many people in the audience are female? So we're about 50-50. So that's interesting. As we're about to debate a very controversial subject, this is the motion. This House believes that a ban on diplomas and degrees awarded by schools and universities would have a positive impact on competence development and lifelong learning. So just as a matter of interest, how many people have got degrees or diplomas? Please raise your hands. So that should give you some idea that this may be a fairly controversial discussion. And it is across Europe and in many countries. It is certainly a topic that is engaging people at a political level and throughout education systems. So it's very topical, very relevant, and we are fortunate that we've got some great speakers on either side. My role is to be the impartial chairman of this debate, and I'm going to be impartial, and you can take my word for it. Trust me, I'm a doctor. And I'm here to ensure fair play, more or less. But what I want to do is to give you an opportunity to take part in the discussion too. So if you want, during the course of anyone's speech, to intervene, then please just ask them if they'll let you intervene on what they're saying. And they have the opportunity to say, no, I won't, please let me finish the point, or I'm not going to take any more interventions, and you can draw whatever conclusions you want. But if you want to say something, don't feel that you have to wait to the end. Ask them if you can intervene, ask them if you can ask a question and come in on the debate. And as long as they're not getting too much bother, I will make sure that they take the intervention. Do feel free to make as much noise and to show your support in whatever way you want at the same time. So, as I say, we've got a great team of speakers lined up, and I'm going to ask our first speaker, who is Jeff Stace, to propose the motion that this House believes that a ban on diplomas and degrees awarded by schools and universities would have a positive impact on competence development and lifelong learning. And Jeff is one of the leading experts on many of these topics in Belgium. He's often a keynote speaker on a whole range of topics such as cultural innovation. He is somebody who has been a training manager and corporate learning officer, where he worked for Siemens in Belgium, and he's somebody who's written widely on a wide variety of topics, one of his books was called My Organisation is a Jungle, which was translated into English. Through the use of rich metaphors and exciting parallels, he truly engages you in the story of the Red Monkey. Other books in his series are My Manager as a Hero and I Was a Sheep. And they continue the story and are often featured in Jeff's speeches. All his books have been best-selling publications with over 15,000 copies sold. So over to you, Jeff. You've got 15 minutes. Both sides will have 15 minutes to start with and then 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay, so the micro is on. So what I'm going to do is, I only got 15 minutes, and they told me to bring some drama in the story. So I need some dramatic people. Okay, so wait, just don't reveal it. You can pick it up, it's okay. So there are, Jay, please, you're one of the icons in this, this thing. I remember Jay when I was young. Can you get this? What's it? Okay, we need some women. And we need some sheep. No, but it's as I only got 50 minutes, so I have to be very careful. But when we were taught about emotion, I think online educa and all the people, professionals in e-learning, etc., we should put something in motion. And I still need one. Are you willing to do this? Thank you. So what I'm going to do is I'll tell you a story in 16 slides. And after the 16 slides, you will never be the same. And if everybody agrees with me, then it's the wrong motion. Because we need conflict. We need people that say, this is right, and even if it's only 20%, then we have to do it with this 20%, and the 80% I really don't care. Okay? So I'm aiming for this thing. This is the ban. The House believes, okay. You can see it over there also. The House believes that the ban on diplomas and degrees awarded by university, we should put a ban on it, because we are domesticating people. People are not people anymore. People are domesticated, and this is the problem. The reason for that is, schools were created in a time frame there was no information. It's the same like there is no water. What do you do in a village when there's no water? You dig a well, and everybody has to drink on the well. Who has the power? The guy who has the well. So what did we do when there was not enough information? We created schools. So we said to people, come to school, because that's where the place where you can learn. And that was 2D time frame. 2D means flat, two-dimensional. Schools were born in a time frame of information shortage. Daniel, what did they do? We created schools with students listening to a teacher who was smarter than everybody in the classroom. And we had respect for these 2D teachers. We had respect because they were the smartest. They had the water. We went to school. My parents said to me, Chef, you have to go to school. Because if you don't go to school, you will be stupid your whole life. Get a degree, get a degree. So what we did is we created schools, and Jan is going to, and we created libraries of books. The whole schooling system was created around books. Now today it's e-books, but it's the same shit. It's only e-shit. But the thing is, we have, you remember what school is. You went to the first year on secondary school or high school, you had to learn all these books. They didn't ask you, do you have a passion and talent for a certain book? No, they said, you have to learn them all. Because if you don't learn all the books, you can't go to the next year. So we as a student, we studied all these books, and then we did an exam. And this is the thing. In 2D, you didn't get a diploma because of your talents and passion. No, you got a diploma because you passed 2D exams which you didn't have the passion or the talent. Otherwise, you couldn't go to the next year, because if you would have the passion and the talent in a certain area, you would be smarter than the teacher. And he didn't allow that, because then he couldn't ask questions he didn't know the answer for. He had to know the answers. So these are two. And then we went to work. And we went to work in a department, and we got a function description. Do you know what a function description is? It's a list of things you have to do. And then after a year, your manager told you, We have an appraisal talk. And then he said, that's okay, but that's not okay. And then you said to your manager, but that's not okay because I don't have the passion and talent. And then your manager said to you, do you think you're here to do what you like to do? No. So, and then he sends you to a course to learn things you didn't like to do. And then you keep the function. And this is this. In 2D, you don't keep a job. This is a good one. This is a good one. This is good. In 2D, you don't keep a job because of your talents. No, you keep a job because you do everything your boss tells you to do, even if it's not your passion or talents. And this is how the world was created before we came common sense. So, then we became sheep. Because they put a fence around us. We couldn't learn our passion and talents in schools because you had to study more about things you didn't like. We didn't have a job we liked with passion and talent. No, we had to do things we didn't like to do. So they said, no, this is your degree. You can't do anything than what the diploma you have. And you can't leave the department. So we became a sheep and we start, So now we have so many sheep in organizations that it's crazy. And then something happened. We became a lost generation. I'm 56. I know so many people who really won't like to do something else, but they are not allowed. They have to pay their house, they have to be a salary, they want to go on a pension. We have created a lost generation. In the 2D time frame, where nothing changed, you could live with this thing. You give people a diploma when they are 21, and then you box them up in a fence, and we could do it. Most of us weren't allowed to use their passion of talents. They were not allowed to learn. So what happens now? And I'm glad it's the second woman in the room. We became a sheep. No more. No more. Tear down these fences. Tear down these fences now. No more. Don't allow it anymore. So we're going to the next thing. Why? Because we have experienced one of the most dramatic changes in history. Do you know what the change is? Today, you don't have to go to a well where there is information. No, today we have internet, we have broadband, we can learn from everything else. We are experiencing a switch. You don't have to go to school anymore to learn. You can learn at home. But you know why you have to go to school? Because somebody says the information in school is better. It's not true. It's not true. It's just a teacher protecting his job. And then the teacher says, but at home you can't get a degree. That's right. You can't get a diploma at home, even if you had a passion and talent. So I tell them, that's the power you have. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take it away. I'm going to take away the power of diplomas, because we need something else. And that's this. And I'm glad Jay is the one, because he's the guy. We are in the third dimension. The twilight zone. And in the third dimension, there is an information luxury. Everybody can learn everything, and this amount of information is leading to very creative people who are creative and entrepreneurs, and the world is changing, and we need to adapt education and learning to this new area. So, and then we're coming to this thing. We need to be 3D smarts. In the 3D age, we don't need 2D diplomas that fence us in and make us a sheep. No, we need lifelong learning based on our passion and talents and unlimited access to information. If a manager today in an organization doesn't give unlimited access to information, whether a manager in an organization or a teacher, he is a bad manager. He's very bad. Or he's a bad teacher. We have to fire him. No more sheeping. We are free, we can learn any place, any time. So this is what we have to become, 3D smart. So the next thing is, how do you become a 3D smart? How do you become the new employee? How do you become the new passionate talent? How do you become the 3D smart, the smart people in this 3D time frame? And I still have some minutes left, I think. Donald, it's going to be a piece of cake. They are already afraid to handle it. We have to become 3D smarts. What are 3D smarts? 3D smarts are people who know their talents. You know what a talent is? It's magic. Your parents were in love, And sometimes they say, Jesus, we're going to get a child. And this child was a mystic box, it's a black box, with talents in it. That's diversity. Everybody has a talent. So you have to know what your talents are. When I was hiring people at Siemens and people with a high degree with diploma, I asked them, what are your talents? They said, I don't know. And they had a degree. And they asked, why do you have a degree? Because I succeeded in something I didn't like to do. But they didn't know their talent. We have to create passion for that talent, passion and evolution. And then we have to give them access to information. And you know what happens when you have talented people who have passion for their talents and you get them information, they become 3D competent. Do you know what happens with people who have a talent but no passion for a talent? It's a waste. Their parents say, that's not why we made you. That's not why we made you. We made you because you have talent. Suppose you have people with a passion for something they don't have a talent. That's stupid. Do you know how many people are stupid? People with a degree. I'm so sorry. So because they learned something where they didn't have a talent for. And then we have access to information. And the next thing is, maybe we should stop with diplomas. Maybe we should start with a 3D Smarts with a 3D competence playlist. Maybe stop talking about diplomas and say, hey Jeff, who are you? I'm Jeff. Show me your playlist. I say, these are my competences. I have a talent for that, a passion for that. That's the way I learn. And at 23, my playlist is like this, and it evolves, because when I was 31, I didn't want to be an engineer, I want to do this, so my playlist changes. And I will have a talk with you with passion, because what are my talents, what are my passion, how do I learn, how competent I am. And this is something that evolves your whole life. But stop talking about certification with people who, Jesus, stop it. So on the last slide is this one. This is the debate. You are not a sheep. Stop acting like one. Thank you.
We'll move on now to our next speaker, who is going to oppose the motion. And she is Kirsty Donnelly, who joined City and Guilds in December 2011 as the Group Director of Product Development. She's worked at the forefront of the e-learning sector for over 20 years, and her previous role was with LearnDirect as Director of Products and Marketing. And she's created award-winning products across the learning marketplace and is passionate about the role of digital and social media in transforming how people live, learn and work. So over to you, Kirsty. I should say that Kirsty's going to be joined by Sue Martin, who's going to speak second, but they're going to do this in a slightly unorthodox way, so they'll join each other, but they'll both get the same amount of time. I'm going to make sure of that. So over to you, Kirsty.
Well, we're having technicals at the moment, but I think we're on. Good. This is the closest I've ever come to feeling like a pop star. So the other thing that I don't think you realise is, if you haven't already read your programme, I'm not Phil Ellaway. So I think straight away that should actually give us more votes, because that means poor Sue has been left with a last-minute speaker and a last-minute presentation. And it's great to be up against such greats as Donald and Jeff, but, you know, I think you've got the motion wrong, quite frankly. We really want to pose a different motion to the House. This is surely about degree or not a degree. It's the wrong question. We want to ask a different question, and it was fascinating before when I think 90% of you put your hands up when we asked, have any of you got degrees or diplomas? Surely not 90% of you want to give those up. So we're going to do a little bit of our own little poll. It's not the official vote. You won't be charged for it. And there's only a few of you. Some of you came in the room. You'll have found some red cards and some orange and green cards, a little pack of 3. If you can get hold of those pack of 3 cards now, and if we can go for a bit of a voting option. I was interesting, Jeff, that you actually managed to have 16 people and 1 sheep to make your motion, and we've actually just got a few cards. So, but what I'd like you to do now is actually, I would like you to vote now if you think all degrees and diplomas are bad for you. Those of you who are holding the cards, red if you think all degrees are bad for you, orange if you think some are or some aren't, and green if you think all degrees are good. So those of you who've got, there should be about 80 people who've got some cards. Where are the cards gone? Can you hold up your cards, please, if you've got your cards, to make your choice? How come okay. Smattering of... Well, not all of you do. Only a smattering of you do, about 80 people, but we think that's a representative sample, so we think that's more than good enough to make a judgment at this moment in time. So we think we've got a bit of work to do, Sue. We've got orange, few red, not as many green. Yeah. Very interested. That means that most of you are prepared to rip up your degrees and diplomas on that basis. But
we ought to exclude the ones that are colourblind, shouldn't we?
Well, of course, we've got to do that as well. But let me just ask you a personal question, if we move on, Sue. Let me just ask you a personal question. It's not too personal, so don't worry. But would you let anyone come and fix your gas boiler? Surely you want a mark of quality. I think before, Jeff, you mentioned something about you don't need certification. How can you have that mark of quality if you haven't got good assessment, test and certification? So things can go wrong when you don't have that. If you don't have a certified engineer come and fix your boiler, look what might happen. This. True story, and I'm sure that his neighbours weren't at all happy when they found out that he learned how to fix his boiler by looking at Google or speaking to somebody just on LinkedIn.
Kirsty, unfortunately, they were only qualified to hold up slides. Me.
So our hypothesis... Well done, Sue.
Thank you.
The power of a cutting woman, that's all I can say. So our hypothesis is centred around the fact we need a mark of quality to make our validation. We need the role of assessment to really validate someone's competence. Yes, it should be embedded in the learning experience. Yes, it should set goals. It should be there to motivate. It should be there to reward. But it should be a sign of that all-important achievement and recognition and progression. Surely we want that. Surely that's what degrees and diplomas can give us. So moving on, do you trust this brand? Quality mark brand, Le Cordon Bleu. Surely you do. What about this one? The Mannheim Business School. Apparently this is a fast-growing business school in Germany that's doing incredibly well at the moment. And what about this brand? Would you trust this brand? Imperial College, been delivering science, technology and medicine for over 100 years. Back in 1997, so only 100 years after it first launched, did it get its degree awarding powers. But it's all about context. It's all important, and we understand that. We're not suggesting that degrees and diplomas shouldn't be now taught in a different context, in a different way. And let's now look at those trusted brands over the context changed. Imperial College, School of Ballet, yeah, okay, we may have well-engineered ballet dancers, but I don't think that's what we're trying to do in that one. Or what about the Mannheim Cookery School, started making apple pies? Or how about the Cordon Bleu School? Would you still trust it if the engineers were all becoming Cordon Bleu chefs? Well, let's move on. So back to our theme and back to the key part of the motion. Let's not blame degrees. It's not about the end product that's at fault. It's probably about how it's being taught, how it's being assessed, how it's being supported. And essentially, what we also need to look at is the role of effective learning in terms of the industry practitioners, the fact it's about a blend of how learning and practical skills can be brought together. That's what we believe is really important. And yes, we recognise that learning is changing. This is a very interesting fact from Google, very recent fact. But the point is that doesn't still mean to say that these children don't have a right to being recognised. They don't have a right to a quality mark, to some recognition and some sense of achievement in this changing learning field. So don't blame the degrees. Have we got the right trainers? Have we got the right approach to what we're learning and how we're teaching it and how we're supporting it in the 21st century? That should be the motion, not let's ban all degrees and diplomas. Is training effective? Is it being delivered by industry practitioners in an industry environment? That is what we should be asking.
Yeah, so it's not about don't test the sheep, it's about what you actually train them to do, but still test them at the end of the day.
Absolutely. So our motion, before Sue takes over for our last bit, is don't ban the degree and diploma. Let's change the way in which we deliver and support it. Otherwise, 90% of you in this room may as well just put it on the bonfire now and go home.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kirsty. And I'm now going to ask our next speaker, who is going to speak for the motion, Donald Clark, to speak for the motion. He was the chief executive and one of the original founders of EPIC, PLC, which established itself as the leading company in the UK e-learning market, and it was floated on the stock market in 1996 and sold in 2005. He's now a board member of Learning Light, the Brighton Festival, the Interactive University and South East Media Network, and he's also a school governor. He's won many awards for the design and implementation of e-learning, and he's won the Outstanding Achievement in E-Learning Award. And he's a well-known and controversial blogger and a controversial speaker as well. So over to you, Donald.
Yeah, that's me. Okay. I'm going to get a wee bit serious, actually, because I'm a parent, and I have 2 kids. They're twin boys, and they're 18 years old. And I'll tell you what the last 18 years has been like for me, and some of you guys in the audience. It's been a hellishly stressful position where my kids get tested yearly. The pressure on them, on myself, on my wife has been immense, leading to bad, disruptive behavior. The expectation on children in these schools is unbelievable. The expectation of teachers is way beyond the normal bounds. The expectations of people who work in universities is way beyond bounds because this paper chase is completely out of control. Completely out of control now, globally. These were the riots in London. Young kids burning our capital city down, most of them losers in this paper chase, condemned, probably about the age of 5, which is when we start testing kids in the UK. This is Greece. 55% youth unemployment in Greece. Has massive expansion in higher education solved that problem? Did you hear Yes's comment there when they were talking about competencies? Well, mention the word bankers for a minute. Did that work? The graduate bankers? This is what it led to. This is what it led to. This is Spain, 53% unemployed. Did it work there? No. This is Italy last week. It didn't work there either, at 35% youth unemployment. And last year I spent a huge amount of time in the Middle East and go to the Arab world and look at the unemployment there. And do you think that these young people don't know what's going on now? The Arab Spring was created by young people who saw through this paper chase, who realized that it didn't lead to jobs because of nepotism, the corruption that exists. This is really what this debate's about. Those people, some who gave their lives for this. This isn't a minor issue here. This is not a small issue. This is the issue of the age. Because loads of these kids, thousands, hundreds of thousands of these kids with degrees are coming out to no jobs or are going to work in McDonald's or are going to work in low-paid jobs, squeezing the people who didn't get degrees right down into the gutter, right down into unemployment. That's what they promise. The second big fail on this paper chase, this exam factory business, is that the whole world is starting to teach things that are just easy to test. You know, it's really difficult to test the things that Yes was talking about, real talents. So, everybody's probably had this question at one time in their life before, and if you know Pythagoras' theorem of 3, 4, 5, actually smart kids just look at it and go, yeah, that looks about 5 to me. They don't know anything about Pythagoras. But look at the answer that this kid gave. Find X. You know something? I don't want to hear about the kid who knows Pythagoras' theorem. I want to hire this guy. You know, the guy who has lateral thinking, he's smart, a bit of humor. I want him straight away. And look what the teacher does. In red pen. Teachers still use red pen. The red pen came from a deficit on a balance sheet. It's a deficit. And teachers mark people down with X's. That's what we do to kids? Are you crazy? B in higher education on S's. And in your institutions, and my kids have had 18 years of sitting exams using pencils, they look at a pencil as if it's a bloody Egyptian artifact. They don't use pencils. We don't use pencils in the workplace. We use keyboards. Teach them bloody keyboard skills. Let them sit, exams, whatever they are, I write for a living. Let me tell you, nobody writes anything sensible in a first draft. It's a stupid test. Your essay tests in universities are shit. And they're shit because nobody can write anything in terms of critical skills in the first draft. Anybody who writes anything knows you have to cut and paste, reorder, think, reflect, change things. And what do? We give them a pencil and expect them to write from A to Z. And what do the kids do in your institutions? They memorize essays. They memorize essays, whole essays, and they regurgitate them in your exams, and that's how they get an A. The real tragedy here is the way in which the whole of the higher education system has squeezed vocational training right off the table. This is disastrous for people who really value good skills that might be useful for the 2 million jobs that are vacancies in Europe that currently exist with no kids to fill them. You know, they might have diplomas, but they'll be burning the cities down and using them as fuel because there's nothing for some of them. Sorry, is my PowerPoint going? Fail. Then even worse, something really horrible happened 10 years ago, actually, and that's the International Arms Race and Assessment and the hideous Leaning Tower of Pisa. I was at the WISE conference last year, sitting next to some Finnish people, and they announced the results of the PISA results. And they were really pissed off because they came second. Wow, pissed off because they came second. Shanghai came first. Read the New York Times article. They cheated. They cheated because it's a big political act for China to become top of the PISA rankings. And that obsession with mathematics, what's all this about? This obsession with mathematics in the West. Obama doesn't stop talking about it. Various prime ministers throughout Europe don't stop. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. You're all smart people. Can anybody tell me? Well, that's true. Can anyone tell me then what the quadratic equation is? I'm a maths teacher. I teach this to 13-year-old kids. Anybody here tell me? I'm going to put you on the spot, by the way. Jay knows. Right, none of you know. Right, this is like GCSE. This is 13, 14-year-old stuff. This is what we're teaching our kids. That. Now, I'm pretty good at maths, you know. I've never used the bloody quadratic equation. I never will. You will never use it. Those kids will never use it. What the hell are we doing here? What the hell are we up to? Because this paper chase distorts life, it distorts teaching, it distorts learning. This is Hong Kong. If you go to Hong Kong, you will see star tutors on buses, billboards with star tutors. These kids are being tutored to 1 and 2 o'clock in the morning, coming into school and falling asleep in their desks. Because that culture has now adopted an arms race to get their kids into universities. An arms race, which is harmful to those kids, their parents, and that culture. Now, I'm glad Jay's here, because I want to quote him for a moment. The truth of the matter is, we as adults know how we learn most of the time, and it ain't informal courses. The vast majority of learning, empirically, this red bar here, is informal learning. You learn it the way, through passion, through your colleagues, increasingly online. But what do we spend all of our money on? I mean all of our money in training and education. Formal courses with diplomas at the end of them. Formal courses. And we know damn well that doesn't work. We don't spend a damn penny on the informal stuff, the looser stuff. And we know that there's informal stuff. I mean, people have to leave. Most people leave school. You know? And throughout their life, I haven't been on a course since I was 28. And you know that German Mannheim School of Business? I don't give a damn about that school. I'm not going to hire anybody from there. I've run big businesses. I've floated them in the stock market. I've never heard of that school. I don't care. Because you don't become an entrepreneur in business school. They don't teach marketing, they don't teach selling, they don't teach anything other than abstract theory and how to write essays. Phil 5. This actually holds back education. Kirsty was a senior executive in an organization called Learn Direct, and I love this organization. I was a trustee. I was Kirsty's boss in a sense. But let me tell you something that happened there. We put 3.5 million people through basic numeracy and literacy. Unemployed people, trying to get them into the workplace. You know, let's give you an example. A young unemployed mother. We get her up there with some basic numeracy and literacy so she can be employable. Then we say, I'm sorry, to get the government funding, we'll have to send you to an assessment centre. What do you think that young single mother does? She doesn't turn up, because that's a place of failure and shame for her. Schools are a place of failure and shame. So many of these people had competencies, but they didn't turn up for the damn test. Because we impose that on those people, and that's wrong. It's morally bankrupt. And do we have a qualifications bubble? I think so. Peter Thiel, who started PayPal, big investor in Facebook, one of the few people who predicted the economic crisis, thinks that higher education is a bubble. And if you look at this longitudinal report from Arun, it does show that kids are going to university and spending less and less time. I'd be amazed if those of you who are teaching in university aren't struggling with the issue of disinterested students. People who have been funneled into your courses, don't quite know why they're there, but you've got to get them through to the end. Because we are cramming people through this system at a hideous rate. And look at this figure from the US. Tuition fees, the black one, going through the roof. Housing bubble, because the financial crisis is the red line. The debt is enormous. That's US data. And for the first time, this happened actually a year and a half ago, student loan debt has crossed over credit card debt in the US. Imagine that. There's more money owed in student fees than credit card fees. You don't think this is a bubble? Peter Thiel, who knows a thing about these two, thinks it is, because the value of the proposition is fairly flat. It's always been slabbing out lectures and lots of essays, but the cost is going through the roof. That's what happened in housing, guys. Your house stayed the same, but the cost went up and up and up until it, that's exactly what it is, a bubble. And for the first time in the history, the majority of jobless workers, 25 and over, have attended college. For the first time, the college guys overtook the guys and women who just had a high school degree. We're in real trouble here. Real trouble. And lastly, fail 7. My two opponents here, this is a really hard sell. I'm trying to get a proposition, ban degrees and diplomas to people who teach degrees and diplomas, design them and sell them. So if I get any votes at all, I'll be amazed. But beware of this. Beware of the people out in the hall here. I'm not here to sell you anything, but these guys are.
They've already bought it.
Sue is the global certification manager for SAP. Director. Even worse. You know, do you think this is a benevolent, charitable organization who's really interested in our children and their future, or making money from testing people? My other opponent is a senior strategic advisor in City & Guilds. If you don't know who they are the UK's largest accreditation and certification body in vocational training. They sell certification. Sorry? A charity. Fair dues. Yeah, fair dues. Okay. And who do you think is the main platinum sponsor of this conference? Think about this for a moment. Yeah? Are they a charity? Are they hell? They are out to test as many people as frequently as possible. That's the truth of the matter. That's the truth of the matter. They're in the States selling this stuff like crazy, and they'll be in Europe soon, selling you stuff like crazy to test our kids. You may as well ring our kids up to a perpetual bloody testing machine from birth. Okay, so I'll end on that point because I have made a serious argument here. You know, we've had a few laughs and so on, but there are big things at stake here, namely the future of our children and the future of children who are coming along the line, because simply passing these debts and these models onto them won't work. The answer to crap schooling isn't just more schooling and more testing, because that's what people are delivering. Thanks very much for listening.
Thanks very much for that, Donald. After that, I'm not sure that our next speaker needs any introduction, but just to
Get more points, Chair.
just to recap, our next speaker is Sue Martin, who is, as was mentioned, the Global Certification Director for SAP. And since 2006, she's been responsible for driving the major transformation of the SAP Global Certification Strategy to a leading-edge business enabler based out of Germany. She's also the European Chair of the Association of Test Publishers. Sue.
Yeah. So, criminal on all fronts, according to Donald. My colleague did want to, my co-founder fighter in this particular one, Kirsty, did want to also point out that, Donald, you're on the board of, what is it?
The Council
of City and Guilds?
I am, yeah.
Esteemed organisation you just criticised.
To change it.
Yeah, right. That's why I joined SAP.
It's an unpaid post.
Oh, well, mine's not, thank God, because it's all about the money. I would like to bring a little slant on this. I think, after Donald's very, very serious contribution, obviously we're all very touched. And of course, it is a very, very serious subject. It's very difficult to follow that, Donald. I'm sorry. I'm touched. But our point is basically, don't blame degrees. Have we got the right testing? And I'm not actually here on grounds of being Global Certification Director at SAP. I see my role in this particular discussion a little bit as Joe the Plumber. Does everybody, can we have a show of hands? Anybody ever heard of Joe the Plumber? Okay, well, for those of you who haven't heard of Joe the Plumber, he played quite a significant role in the 2008 US elections because he basically stood up and he was manipulated by both parties, which I'm sure I will be as well, and basically put forward his particular interests as the small man on the street, which, small woman on the street. And I'd just like to point out the significance of stakeholder value in terms of testing. So yes, we've heard all about, how our kids learn, how the testing methods for diplomas and degrees are completely irrelevant and don't actually match to how kids learn, don't actually match to the level of competence that they need to react to actually be useful individuals in working life and in society as a whole. My esteemed colleague and I don't contradict that at all.
We don't.
We don't contradict that at all, in spite of the fact that we could probably earn some money on it if we did. We don't contradict that at all. Our point is that if you can't test it, you can't measure it, it reduces the stakeholder value. And my point as Joe the Plumber is I consider myself to be a stakeholder in about 4 perspectives. So we heard from Donald that he's got 2 18-year-old sons, so they've got their university education ahead of them. My son is 22 and he's just in his last year at an international business school, not Mannheim. And so I see it as, I see myself on one hand as the poor paying parent, and my question is, how do I know that my son has spent the last 4 years really, really learning something that he should learn, and where's my measure of return on investment? I've paid. Probably not paid as much as if he'd studied in the UK, but I've still paid quite a lot. And, how do I know he's actually learned something? What's the deliverable that comes out at the end of the day?
Bonuses.
Yeah. Has he just partied?
Salary.
Exactly. Oh, damn well, I hope so. He's buying his mother's Porsche when I've retired. So, it's my return on investment basically as a poor paying parent. I also consider myself as a taxpayer, so, we invest heavily in the education system. I think it's a very, very valid point that Donald's brought that, there's not necessarily always the return on investment there. It's costing more and more, but, are we actually getting anything out of it? I would contradict what Donald said about the PISA report, because I see that from a different area. My children have been largely educated in Germany. Germany came 25th on most of the PISA reports. And we've seen quite substantial education reforms, which probably won't really kick in to benefit my children, but I think in terms of central testing and that sort of thing, I think PISA has made some significant changes. It's driven change. So I see myself as a taxpayer. I'd like to have some level of return on investment. I'd like to have some proof that what's actually coming out of our higher education establishments is something that is of value. My third little idea is obviously as a graduate. How many graduates do we have in the room?
90%, I think.
90%, I think it is, isn't it? So, as I mentioned before, I have invested quite a lot in my son's education so far. Who in the room would be willing to hand off their degree and diploma to my son? We don't want yours, Jeff, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, it's not 90% anyway. There's a couple in there that I will be talking to later, but it's by no means 90%. I, as a graduate, admit, yes, you know, when I did my business degree, God almighty, did I learn some irrelevant stuff. You know, I've never had to program anything in BASIC since I left university. Yes, Jeff?
How many are still doing a job in line of what they studied?
The skills are relevant-ish?
No, they are teachers. I just want to make a point. I think the educational system is one of the systems where people who had a degree still keep doing what's on their degree. If you look into industry, 90% of the people don't do anything that has associated with a diploma or degree. So this means that 80 to 90% aren't able to do their job.
No, they're not. That's lifelong learning.
They weren't validated.
A degree gets you into your career, and then there's lifelong learning.
No, that's not true. That's
Unless
not true.
you eat paintbrushes as a child.
You're avoiding the question.
I mean... Yes, please do, Donald.
You mentioned PISA and Germany. And Germany is the strongest economy in Europe, by the way, so I don't see that they're doing much wrong. But let me tell you what PISA's done in the UK. Our education secretary has taken PISA, doesn't know much about it, and created a thing called the English Baccalaureate. And let me tell you what that qualification does. It puts Latin, a dead language, above every other vocational subject in the curriculum, because he's an idiot.
But Donald?
Now, wait a minute, let me finish my point. Let's not imagine that PISA is now, the people at PISA are doing good statistical work. They are being hijacked. That work has been hijacked by politicians for their own ends. And this obsession with mathematics and Latin and other high-end academic subjects at the expense of vocational subjects. And that's not right.
I agree.
But Donald,
yeah.
no, actually.
We absolutely agree. We absolutely agree.
We
But the
would agree.
motion is a ban. The motion is a ban on diplomas and degrees, and the motion is a ban on having some measure of evaluation. What we're saying is, graduate bankers... No, let me finish.
No, but you misunderstand the whole thing. You still don't get it.
But that is the motion, Jeff.
No.
To take an intervention because we've got to move on. So
Okay. Okay.
You refuse to...
I refuse, yeah. Sorry. I've got stuff to do. Places to go to. And last but not least, obviously, Donald touched on it. I am Global Certification Director at SAP. And so it's basically, my fourth perspective on this in terms of stakeholder value is industry. And before Donald shouts in and says it needs to be more relevant, I agree.
Absolutely.
It does need to be more relevant, but banning it doesn't make it more relevant. So we need some measure. We need to know what they know. Yes, we do need to know what they can do, what skills they've got. Yes, it does need to be improved, but our motion, our opposition to the motion is based completely, and this is what you need to remember when you're voting, is based completely on stakeholder value and on the fact of whether a ban on diploma and degrees would in any way or form tackle the other issues that have been, you know, the sheep, the whole lot, the lost generation with their flip charts, it's all not related to the motion. Those are all valid issues, but when it comes down to it and you have to vote to make a difference in this debate, remember what the motion is. The motion is banning it. Collaborative learning is great. Collaborative testing, I'll leave you with an example. My son has not been home from business school for 4 weekends. Why has he not been home? Because he is in a collaborative tutorial group. It's great for learning, but he's got stuck with 3 exchange students. He says they're not tested. They don't get grades. They're over here over here in Europe for his tutorial group. They're not graded. He spends the whole weekend doing the work of that project group. Yeah.
Well, hang on a minute. Can we, if you're going to bring your remarks to an end,
yes, I'd be happy to.
Then I'm going to throw it open to the floor, so you can ask in a minute or two. But just draw your thing to an end.
Yeah, yeah. So, I'd like to summarise basically that it's not about whether we've got the right testing system. It's about the necessity of whether we should test or not. And my opposition, or the opposition of my esteemed colleague and I, to this is, yes, of course, you have to have some measurement. You have to have some deliverable out of higher education. You have to have something that the graduate can take home, that I as a parent can take home, that I as a prospective employer can use as a smart benchmark for recruiting decisions. And that as I as a taxpayer can see I've got some level of return on investment. It's all about return on investment. So it's all about the money, as Donald said. So bear that in mind. What we're saying is not a ban on diplomas and degrees, but let's make them better. Let's make them more relevant. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's focus our efforts on making it more relevant, making it better for working life. But a ban isn't seriously going to help that in any way or form, is it now? Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much, Sue, and thank you to all our speakers. I can now throw the discussion over to you, over to the floor of the House, and you've been very quiet so far. I won't say you've been like one of Jeff's sheep, but you might want to make a little bit more noise in your contributions. I can see various hands going up. So if you want to ask a question, make a comment, make a short speech, then now's the opportunity. I think we've got about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to ask each side to sum up their arguments for 5 minutes, and then we will have a vote. Yes.
Yes, I agree with Donald. Thank you very much for your presentation and for your thoughts.
You need to support us, though.
I was thinking that it's not a question of we need something to evaluate. I don't know if measuring is the right word. And I only want to say, like a foot for thought, that it is important how we are testing. I do a lot of experiments with my students, just like open book. I give them everything, and I say you can do it on the computer, and you can do it online, however you want. But the issue is how you are arguing, because if I ask for how you are arguing, if you have a special point you want to argue, then you have to go inside yourself. You have to have a point. And this is something that I am missing in all the evaluation, in all the tests. We try to make everything equal. And this is a very bad point of our education system.
Will you answer? You've got 5 minutes to sum up. So unless it's a direct question, I think you should do it in the summing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we get more contributions in. Yeah, Peter.
Okay, I'll say degrees and diplomas can't be stopped. If we don't have government-controlled diplomas and degrees, they will just be replaced by a private anarchy of uncontrolled diplomas. So what is worst?
Bravo.
You answer that.
I think this is untrue. I worked for 30 years in the training business for big corporates, government, military, health services, public sector. Believe me, none of that was certified. They don't care. They care about performance. I delivered millions and millions of pounds on global projects on training, and employers weren't the least bit interested in diplomas. Actually, they quite liked a little printout at the end of the course to say you had completed it. It was as trivial as that. Because people who run companies and big organisations value performance and not paper.
So how come so many employers... How come so many employers are looking for
apart from people
vocational
like SAP,
education...
who sell certification to lock you into their software.
No, we do not.
No, I can't keep. Okay, I can't keep quiet anymore. It's been too long. It's been too long. I may have to, but I think that the way we test today, and I fully agree with the motion because we put it in, we should ban it. Testing is how do you say it? We are settling for less. We are not trying to use the passion and talents of people to get more than what we today test. That's the problem. For instance, a month ago, I gave a lecture for 100 and so much dentists. And they all had a degree. They were all tested. And at the end, I said to these guys, I have to be sorry, but the most passionate, talented dentist is not in this room. And they asked me why. Because he didn't get his high school degree because he was bad in history.
But Jeff,
So,
can I just...
no, I just want to have
You're going to get 5 minutes to sum up at the end.
How can
But I
learners
want-
know how they're doing if we don't test them?
SAP.
You can briefly respond to that.
I
and
can
then I'm going
briefly
to let
respond to the
somebody from
SAP
floor
thing,
talk.
please. SAP is, along with the rest of the technology industry, very focused on providing certification programs, and it's not to, we make a loss on our certification. It's important for us to basically, it's our responsibility to the customer who invests millions in our software to make sure that we have some measure, some benchmark of who's going out there and who's implementing that software. Right. It's back to the boiler picture that my esteemed colleague had in her. That is our responsibility as a software company.
Okay.
Yeah?
All right. The lady there with the microphone.
I'm in charge. Right. I lived with this question for 40 years. My parents are both doctors. One was in the medical area and the other one moved into psychiatry and psychoanalyst. No damage. No damage whatsoever. We started discussing this question as it came to that not all doctors are good with patients, right?
Yeah.
And we started discussion about this and said, well, what people get into medical schools? And at that time, it was only the people with the highest school degrees that got into medical schools. And those were usually the people who were stuck in their closet just reading the books to get into medical schools. So they were not good with people. We all agreed with that. Well, what was the alternative?
Exactly.
And then I was looking at my mom, and she said, and all of her strange colleagues, and they said the alternative was to have her colleagues interviewing for the ones who were the better probable doctors. I was like, God bless, let's never go there. So no interviews, please, let's have some testing. Thank you.
Good. Excellent.
Quick comment from Donald.
A quick comment. I spent 5 years doing medical education, and I worked with a guy called Kashiri, who was a pioneer in keyhole surgery. And he told me something very interesting, that for years and years and years, when he tested surgeons on keyhole surgery, they were academically brilliant and haptically hopeless. For years, we had been selecting surgeons that were killing people because we selected them on grades and not skills.
Okay. Comment over there. Yes.
No, it's goes this side.
Yeah.
Switched on just for the ladies. Good.
Thank you very much. My name is Chiji Eke from Nigeria. And I want to tell you that to my gentleman, sorry I came in before after you were speaking, you told them, well done. But then, I flew long hours to get here, and I suppose most of you, they are colleagues and participants, you flew too. How many of us here will enter into an aircraft to go home with pilots not certified?
Yes.
How many?
Exactly.
So we should keep working at it
Bravo.
and get it better. I think certification should remain. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Can
you.
I just make a very quick point? We're not saying that testing is, we're not saying that things don't need to change with testing. We're saying it needs to be a part of the learning process to do exactly what that gentleman
Yes,
just
that's what I just said. Because how do I get into an aircraft to fly home when you tell me, oh, that guy can do it, but he doesn't have an AFL license because
got
he
a lot of
wasn't
soft skills.
tested.
Right.
I'm going to sit down. Thanks.
Okay. No, I'm not going to take any more from here because I want to get more contributions from the audience. Ahmed.
Someone's got the microphone already. That guy has the microphone.
Where is,
We can hear you.
thank you, Harold. I do agree partially with Jeff and Donald. Yes, a lot of people in our history changed the history without diplomas and without any degrees. But also we need some sort of testing, like the lady here said, that we need to know, to measure, we need to something to qualify even the talent. Even the talent. Yes. While I was preparing for my keynote speech about the VUCA here, I read a summary of the future of education in the United States. They said that the education in 2050, there will be no schools. There even will be no homogeneity in age for the education. This means that maybe one in my age will get some sort of knowledge at the same level or at the same time with a younger one, maybe teenager or something like this. They want to remove the barrier. They want to have open schools through the social networks, so that the social networks will do the job of the school in the future. So that, yes, diplomas and degrees may be not the only qualifications we need, but we need something to test.
Exactly. That's
Only to test or to know even the talent, so that, yes, how we will judge the talent of the people without you. Yes, you interview them, you measure them according to certain reference or terms of reference in you, even in your mind, so that we want a sort like this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Yes. Gentleman at the back with the microphone at the back there.
Hello. I think from Donald's statistics, we clearly saw that people learn more informally than formally. And if you see the statistics, it's really high. And the thing with informal learning is that you never get tested, but you have all this information in your head, and you have a lot of skills that you can pass on. You can even train other people. My big question about testing is, what happens when I fail? Does this mean I'm stupid? Does this mean I can't do anything? That's when testing, I think, really loses meaning, because it demoralizes a lot of people when they fail an exam. And yet they're actually meaningful people and they can do a lot of stuff in their life. So that's my big question.
Okay, that's a good question. I'll take an answer to that from each side, a brief answer.
Okay, can I answer?
Yeah, do you want to start, darling? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's a very valid question, and I think it keeps coming up again and again and again. It's not, it's not that we're against, we shouldn't be against testing in total. It's about measurement, but it has to be relevant. It has to be relevant, it has to be valid, it has to be reliable. And if it's not all of that, and I think every one of us in the room is aware that is the ideal case, and in a lot of places and a lot of institutions, it's just not up to standard, then obviously, yeah, it's unfair. But testing should always be fair and should always be related to the skills or the knowledge that you're being tested on. And if you feel that you have the skills and the knowledge and come out of that exam having failed, then the exam was wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
Donald.
I say the debate in the last few questions has drifted completely towards one word, and that's testing, which doesn't appear in the proposition. And my argument isn't against someone who's a pilot who has gone through 300 hours of flight simulation training. My argument is against the types of diplomas and degrees which give you none of that performance measurement. None of it at all. Absolutely nothing. It gives you a word, 2 numbers with a dot between. I, as an employer, almost completely disregarded degrees on CVs. But I did test people when they arrived on my doorstep. And I employed lots of programmers, and I tested all of them. And many of those programmers, many of the best people I've worked with, coders for 30 years, many of them had never gone near a university. In fact, the best coders absolutely had learned it on their own because they were passionate from the age of about 10 about coding. And this is generally true of testing. I'm not against testing if it truly measures performance, but the vast majority doesn't.
So does that mean you're on our side?
It's illusory, these certificates.
Come on, we're running out of time and we need to give some more people a chance. Down at the front here.
What I think is so sad about degrees is that in a lot of ways it doesn't give you any information in what you're good at and what you want to be or like to do. Donald's got 2 children, Jeff's got a couple, you probably got as well. I got 2 daughters, they're 7 and 10. They're measured, they get a degree, primary education, whether they are good at math and good at Dutch, and possibly a bit of French. All the rest is not relevant, it's not important. Although my eldest is a very good debater, she's very good in lots of things, the degree doesn't tell us that. It doesn't help us. And from what's more, our degree, the schooling doesn't help us to find out. No, next year she'll get a school counselor to find out what she's good at. This is entirely crazy, I think. So what you're discussing is that certification is good, degrees. What are we actually testing? What is actually the degree we are delivering?
Well, I think we're...
Can I?
No, you can't at the moment. Just wait till
We've been told to be quiet.
Right, at the back, David Hollow.
Okay.
Can we get the microphone to the back? Or
What?
David to the microphone. Can you take the microphone to the back, please? Can you take the microphone to the back? No, I want to... I'm deciding who speaks, all right? I'll come back to you later, but the microphone there first, please.
Thank you, Harold. Let me begin a very brief intervention for Jeff and Donald. Thank you for your presentation. Compelling, yes. Impassioned, yes. Coherent, not quite. If we look up to the right and read, as Donald drew us back to, the wording of the motion, as he rightly said, the word testing does not appear. But what's the most significant word in the whole of that motion? Absolutely, ban.
Exactly.
Word number 6, ban, is the most significant word in that motion. And what Donald and Jeff have proposed to us, which is curious, I would guess ideologically they would sit slightly to left of centre, as would I. But what's being proposed is that they would put their ideological assumptions onto every child, every young person growing up in the country who, perhaps in their folly, perhaps in their wisdom, would like to get a diploma or a degree. And you are suggesting that should not be allowed under any circumstances, which implicitly, assumed within that, is the imposition of a totalitarian state. There's no other alternative.
That's not a question.
The word ban is the key. Nothing else. 90% of the argument is irrelevant. You are proposing a ban.
Right.
Thanks.
Thanks for that. I'm going to let them respond in their final remarks later, because each side will have 5 minutes later. Yes, Hannah.
Okay. I want to ask whether degree, passion and talent cannot be combined, because I definitely think so. So our problem is to help the young people and children to find that area where they are talented in and get the degree there. And that's maybe the problem with our school systems. I come from Finland. We are very high in PISA, but there is also the difference. We don't test our children to death. We love them at schools. It's not perfect there, but still they have, the Finnish curricula are very free. So we don't have this apparatus from USA, testing, teaching to tests. We don't have it, and we have good results. So we try to at least give them a little bit freedom, and it seems to work. Although this measurement of PISA, I put it also in question, but still, they are free, more free than some others. Not happy at school, but they still have possibilities to have PISA.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm going to take 3 more questions or comments, and then I'm going to ask each side to sum up. Yes, down here.
Hi, I think I would be a better person to comment here. The reason being is I have 3 masters, 8 certifications, including SAP, at the age of 32. At the age of 32, having 15 years of experience as well. But none of these degrees helped me to get a proficient performance. That's what I want to say. But these degrees helped me to get a job, obviously,
exactly.
Right? What I wanted to make a comment here, I partially agree with both the sides. It has nothing to do with degrees to be banned or diplomas to be banned. Again, the process, how it happens, how somebody is certified or, qualified, they only test knowledge. Most of the time, they don't test the skills. It's like a medical student just studied 4 or 5 years of medicine and given him to go to the operation theater and do a open heart surgery. Is that possible? Absolutely not, right? So it is to do with the process. It is to do with the curriculum. Are we giving the right curriculum for the right degree? That's most important. Me learning history in my school days, it's absolutely not making any sense. My 4-year-old kid, singing a rhyme, London Bridge is falling down, London Bridge is falling down. What are we saying? Right? And he is enjoying that rhyme. And he is saying, my fair lady. He's stressing on that, my fair lady. At a year of 4 years, what are we telling this guy? So the training or the education system is more about vocational, job-oriented. We are generating more and more engineers who are more theoretical, who knows in which page number, which topic is there, and what sentence, what word they have used. Absolutely ridiculous. We are not teaching the skills. We are not training them on the job, what is required for the job. We are just more and more following so-called books, which has thousands of information. Not all the information is useful. That's my comment. Thanks.
Thank you. 2 more questions. Yes, Gaston. Is the microphone on?
Just speak into it and it'll come on.
It comes on.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah, I think so. Hit it.
Throw it at these 2.
Throw it at the opposition. Just a sec.
Try this one.
Hello. You need some testing. Microphone testing.
Okay, I hope it will work now.
Treble.
So, so when I read what is in the blackboard there, I think both sides are really going in the same way, because we are speaking about degrees and diploma awarded by schools and universities. That, in my view, means It's not the global problems of degrees and diploma, but the one which are awarded by schools and universities. And I think if we take the problem in that side, we'll have more answers to our questions. So that was the remark I wanted to give.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. The last question or comment? Yes. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Omar. I'm from Ethiopia, and I have a question for the ladies. Let's say it's banned, and then you're not allowed to use these degrees and diplomas as one of the qualification methods. How would you proceed hiring people?
Well, you can do that now.
I certainly
do that in the
wouldn't.
summary.
Okay. Well, no, mine's a real quick one. I certainly wouldn't just rely on LinkedIn profiles.
No. Or Google. Or Google searches.
Or Google searches. I think that's the whole point of it. The diplomas and degrees, or any sort of qualification, are one of a series of recruitment criteria that you would use. You know, interviews and assessment centres and project experience and that sort of thing.
It's about the quality stamp as well.
Yeah, but it's one very important one.
Okay. Thank you very much, all of you, for your contributions, and thank you again to our speakers. It's now time for me to ask each of them or each team to sum up their arguments, and I'm going to give them a maximum of 5 minutes each to sum up and to deal with some of the issues that you've raised, and then we'll have a vote and we'll decide who's the winner. So first of all, I'm going to ask the opponents of the motion to sum up.
Okay, well listen, thank you very much for listening to us. I'm going to keep it quite simple actually before I pass on to Sue to also make her summary comments. Look, I think it is quite simple, and everything I've just heard this evening just screams out to me that what we do need is vocational, relevant degrees and diplomas. Not to ban degrees and diplomas, but change them and make them relevant, make them worthwhile, make them job ready. So, you know, we know that we need them because learners need to know how they're doing. Employers need to know how their workforce are doing. And testing, we talked a lot about testing. Testing is just one part of that process, but it's not the be-all and end-all. The point is the diploma, the degree, the certificate, whatever it is, equals the quality mark. So that acquisition of competence and applying those skills has to have a mark of quality. We have to be able to judge that in some way. It can't be random. And so that's the point of our part of the motion. You can't ban this, otherwise we're not going to have that quality mark and people aren't going to have that sense of reward and achievement. Donald mentioned earlier Learn Direct, which I did work for all that time, and 3 million learners walked around with that certificate, with that achievement, and they were very proud of that. City and Guilds, 2 million certificates a year. It's not that it's just the end certificate, it's the whole journey that they've taken to get there, but it's that quality mark that's recognised by both the learner and by both the employer. And it's wrong for an employer to state, is it wrong for an employer to actually say what they want is a qualified, quality employee? Is it wrong that an employer asks for somebody who's got the City and Guilds qualification? I really don't think so, Donald, but that may be a closing question that you might want to mention in your close. Sue.
Well, there's not a lot I can add to that, actually, Kirsty. I'd like to, reiterate what we've said. It's all about stakeholder value, and I think I would add to Kirsty's comments. It's about deliverables. It's purely and simply about deliverables. So if I invest in the education of my child, if I invest in the education system within my, the country I pay my taxes in, what do I expect? Or as a member of industry, I have a right, I have an entitlement to have some level of benchmarking that I can use to make smart recruiting decisions. If I'm an SAP customer, I'm entitled to having a benchmark that helps me choose between somebody who's been through training and shown the necessary amount of skills and analytical skills, who is actually certified, and the guy who has a great LinkedIn profile. That's my benchmark. And we're not, as Kirsty said, we're not saying that there isn't a lot of room for improvement in the way that we do have diplomas and degrees set up, and both from a learning perspective and from an assessment perspective. And with my other hat on at the Association of Test Publishers, chairperson. That is a voluntary role that I have. It's obviously in my interest to drive more innovative ways of testing, and I think that's where the future is. The future is really how can we test skills more competently to get more reliable benchmarks into place. And it's not a question of a ban on diploma. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's not a question of banning diplomas and degrees. It's a question of making them more relevant for the younger generation, maybe also for the lost generation, which I belong to, but I am not going to hold up any slides for Jeff. So that's my summary. Yeah? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're trying to divide the time between two of us, but the thing is, if you read the motion, it says, we believe that a ban on diplomas would have a positive impact on lifelong learning. And I think we should concentrate on that, because I'm 56, the way I see a diploma is just a set of courses you have to study, whether or not you have the passion or talent for all of them, but you have to study it in order to get a diploma. I'm not against testing. No, I'm just against the principle of diplomas. So what I would like to see is that our children can choose a path in learning where they, based on their passion and talents, become better than the tests today show. Because we're not challenging our children, we are just making them pass tests. But suppose you have an educational system where our children get aware of their passion and talents and do much better than the tests. And they become testers of the teachers because they have so much passion and talent to information. So that's the beginning of lifelong learning. So they have to have an idea what the learning is. And who is going to evaluate? That's the people who they are going to work for. Because that, at the end, they will have to do what they have to do. So the thing is, now I go about testing, because this wasn't really about testing. It's about a diploma. You changed the subject, but that's something else.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't at all.
No,
testing, actually.
No, you're too late now, too late. The last thing I want to add is, and you really have to find an answer to that. Today, millions of people are working in something they like to do. They are passionate at talents. They have access to information. Every passionate talent today gets better every day, adapting to a new society and a new world. Millions of people. Are we going to test them all to make sure they are able to do what they do? It's a failing system. We have to find something else.
I was really pleased that towards the end of the debate we had some contributions from people from Africa and the Middle East, Indian subcontinent, because I spent some time in those places, and what I've witnessed really is a moral catastrophe, which is educational colonialism, which is Western and American Anglo-Saxon universities setting up shop and selling Freudian slip. Selling expensive degrees to your people. Those people then leave the countries and go and live in the countries that sold them the degrees in the first place. So I just want to make that brief point. Now, I didn't plan on doing this, but I want to tell you a story because it came into my sort of head as just a few moments ago. When I was at university, I shared a room with a guy. He was my best friend. I shared one room, 2 beds, for 2 years. And this guy turned out to be a spy. Here, for the Stasi, based in Berlin. His handler was based in East Germany. And he recruited many people in academia over many years. And he was a spy until 1989, when the wall came down. And when the good people of East Germany went into Leipzig and Berlin and went through the records, the Stasi were shredding them, but they stopped just before Robbins. That's how we found out he was a spy. But they found something really interesting in these places. Huge jars, hundreds and hundreds of jars with rubber seals and numbers and names on the front of them. And it puzzled them. People didn't know what they were. They were actually storing the smells of potential suspects. They would interview people, the Stasi, and put the towel underneath them and put them in the jar and seal it so that the dogs would chase them down if they tried to skip over the wall. This is a true story, and I resent the accusation that I am some sort of totalitarian lefty, because the Stasi were, and they and we, through diplomas and degrees, are collecting useless bits of papers and smells in jars, guys. That's what we're doing. So there's a moral to the story. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much for that. It's now time to move to the vote. So I'm going to ask all those who agree with the motion, that is, agree with Donald and Jeff, and the motion that this House believes that a ban on diplomas and degrees awarded by schools and universities would have a positive impact on competence development and lifelong learning. All those who agree with that motion, please raise your right hand. Or any hand, but just one. Right. Right, and all those against? I would say that the motion is narrowly carried.
Yeah, it was, because there was abstentions.
Yes, we'll take abstentions. All those who want to abstain.
Hold on, we've got abstentions.
All those who are abstaining, please raise their hands.
I think it's
right.
half and half.
I think the motion is carried, was my impression, but I'm quite happy to get
we have
people to
another
raise
vote?
their
No, let's just do it again. With
all right, we'll do it one more time,
you
just to
changed
make
your mind
sure.
just at the end, didn't you?
Just all those in favour of the motion, please raise your hand.
This isn't Florida.
And all those against? I think it's carried, actually quite substantially carried. So
Okay.
Congratulations to Jeff and Donald, and a big hand to our speakers.